The Fed15 podcast is presented by Serving Those Who Serve, a financial planning practice serving federal government employees and retirees all over the country. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended to be taken as financial advice. All listeners should consult their personal advisors before taking any action. The opinions expressed by our hosts are their own and do not reflect the views, policies, or position of either Raymond James or Serving Those Who Serve. Securities are offered through Raymond James Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services are offered through Raymond James Financial Services Advisors, Inc. Serving Those Who Serve is not a registered broker-dealer and is independent of Raymond James Financial Services, Inc.
Welcome to the Fed15 podcast presented by us, Serving Those Who Serve. Each week, we discuss the latest news and info that Feds need to know in 15 minutes-ish or less. So whether you are a seasoned federal employee or just starting out in your career, we've got you covered. So grab your coffee, your energy drink, your green juice, whatever it is that gets you rolling, keeps you rolling. And we will tell you what you need to know but might have missed. We are your host. I'm Dan Sipe, and I am joined by the enthusiastic, energetic, and ebullient Katelyn Murray.
I love that. That was, hang on, that third word you used, I don't know. What is that word? Let's have a
Ebullient.
word of the day moment. What's
Ebullient.
the definition? Ebullient.
I'll give you a minute on it.
Dan's like, it sounds like you. And we've used effervescent already. So
It is, I'll let you off the hook. It is cheerful and full of energy.
I love it.
Yeah, right?
Awesome. Ebullient. I love
I pulled
that.
a good word there.
It's very good. Yeah. I mean,
Right.
I'm a peddler of words, so it's rare to find
I'm still
one.
Thesaurus Rex.
Yeah. You still got it, man. Fabulous. All right. Well, so what are we talking about today, Dan? I hear tell that you're going to talk to us a little bit about uncertainty and how we can plan for life in an uncertain world, particularly from a retirement planning perspective. And then I can answer how people typically ask that question, which is, how much money do I need to have to retire?
How much is enough? Yes.
Yeah. How much?
And our writing team is fantastic, but I always have to chuckle with some of these, like, what does planning for certainty look like?
Listen, who knows?
Do you even have to plan for certainty? I mean, it's like, that's going to happen. Don't do this. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think planning for certainty is relatively binary. So at any rate, here we are talking about, some best practices basically for laying out, navigating when things might not be going 100% according to plan. So, first up, structure helps. So understand your federal retirement rules because those policies do evolve. They don't change a lot, and that's something I like. Okay, so I really like that. But also when you get to your planning, building out that structure so that it can absorb some changes without derailing the long-term goals. Okay. And what happens there is when you have consistent frameworks those are your go-tos when you're confronted with something, it reduces reactionary decision-making.
Which is very important.
Absolutely.
Number one derailer of plans, certain or uncertain, is reactionary behaviors.
Absolutely. So recognize that you're able to build an income floor that you can count on. Okay. With your CSR, so your FERS annuity, your Social Security when appropriate, cash reserves. Okay. So that can be the stable part. Then separate your essential income from your discretionary and flex spending because you want to be strategic about that part. So that might come from TSP or IRA withdrawals or, and this is not a dirty word because I'm part of the forever young baby boomer generation, we're finding that keeping our hand in at something helps us have a more vibrant older years. Don't let the baby face fool you, folks. My next birthday starts with a 7. And I can tell you being around ebullient people help keep me young. So have that clear separation of the essentials versus the discretionary. And why is that important during market volatility? Because the market's going to move around if you live long enough. If you live long enough, you're going to have a bear market. I just don't know when it'll be, but it's going to happen. And if you live long enough, probably a crash. And I don't say that cavalierly, but they do happen, and there are toolkits for them. There are things that you can do. But if you know where money's coming from, you know where not to take things when the market might be moving against you. Okay? Establish that asset allocation. Hit our webinars. Our TSP webinar, financial planning webinar, we talk about this. The right mix of whether it's the 5 core funds or if you have outside assets, allocate them by asset class, U.S. large, U.S. small, international, bonds, fixed. Okay. And recognize that there's going to be drift. So you set them up at a certain percentage and you walk away for 90 days. They're going to be a little bit different, but establish what your drift parameters are going to be before you rebalance. And rebalancing, I'm fond of saying this, that's something you can almost do at any time and you're not going to blow anything up. Okay. So if you get scared, rebalance. Okay. But also rebalance based on rules. You're supposed to have so much here and that's not what you have. That means you're either moving some money into that or some money out of it. Now, if you're just, oh, Dan, I can't, and no, I don't want an advisor, then take a look at the L funds. Okay. They're not bad. They're not bad. I would say that you need to remember that there are interfund limits for how much you can do and how frequently, and factor those into your rebalancing plans. Have a cash flow cushion for surprises, whether they be policy surprises from the government, pop-up surprises like, hey, this broke and I need to do something like that. I would say whenever possible, try to time large discretionary expenses during lower tax years. So if you're working right now and you haven't yet retired, you're at full income, and there's something that you were thinking about doing, might be better done next year when you're on a retirement income, if it's possible to do that. And you want to, whenever possible, not spike your taxable income by doing those withdrawals because they can affect your Medicare premiums. Okay. They can affect just your basic tax bracket. So have a strategy for doing it. Also, and this is missed so much in retirement. Okay. Stay on top of your benefits and your elections. Review your FEHB coverage. It's not, I'm retired now. I don't have an open season anymore. Yes, you do. You have an open season every year. Okay. And there are more and more options coming in that interface differently with Medicare. So stay up to speed with that. Visit our webinars to do it. There are plenty of other places where you can read up on it. Most of the really good ones are here. Well, let's see if that makes it through compliance.
Hey.
And by all means, there are other good places too. Serving the Reserve is not the only place. But also make sure your beneficiary designations are current. Okay. Because you'll be gone, but you don't want the wrong thing to happen. Make sure you're up to date on your durable power of attorney, your medical directives. God forbid something should happen. And the big thing for scenario planning, control what you can and then have a strategic way to respond to the things that you can't control. And that will make a huge difference for you. So Katelyn, tell us about how do we know when we have enough?
Yeah. So this is a question that we get a lot, obviously, from folks who we work with, from folks who are kind of like coming in. Maybe it's their first conversation with us. And maybe not, honestly. A lot of folks will ask, how do I know when I have enough to retire? How much do I need to retire? What is the dollar? It's almost like, kind of interestingly, Dan, it connects with that joke, right? It's almost like they want to plan for certainty, right? They want that really, really clear number. And so we decided that we would write a little bit about that. So just kind of some context around this. You may not know this, but roughly about 11,000 Americans turn 65 each day through the year 2027. So every day in 2027 is somebody's birthday. And to me, that means that I can be eating cake every day because I'm celebrating some fellow American's birthday.
There you go.
And I'm very patriotic. So about half of our baby boomers and Gen Xers believe that their retirement savings are insufficient. And that's a stat that makes me very sad because there's probably a lot of anxiety that goes along with that. there is kind of a general benchmark that's out there that's referenced by a lot of folks in the industry that, by, age 35, you should have 1 to 1.5 times your salary saved, right? Total. And that by 50, you should have 3.5 to 5.5 times your salary saved. And that at 60, you should have 6 to 11 times your salary saved. And at 65, if you've got 10 times your annual income saved, then you can retire. Now, I have always kind of raised an eyebrow at these numbers because on the behavioral side, I can certainly understand how having a number like 5 times my salary can be a motivating factor for you.
Sure.
At the same time, I have questions. I have questions like, what salary? Which one? The one when I'm 35 or the one when I'm 65?
Fair question.
Which one am I multiplying by, right? And there's also the question of what is it for? Because your salary, right, you're doing multiple things with that. You're paying taxes, right? Or I hope you're paying taxes. Otherwise, you might not be listening to this podcast long. But,
well, you're planning for a certainty then, because something bad's going to happen.
That's fair. You're planning for 3 square a day. But let's set our goals a little bit higher. So out of our salaries, I, Katelyn Murray, am definitely paying my taxes. The other thing I'm doing is I'm saving for my midterm, my short-term, my midterm, and my long-term goals. Short-term goal might be travel. Midterm goal might be a house renovation. And a long-term goal might be retirement, right? So we're saving for those goals from that. And then we're also paying all of our current day expenses, right? And hopefully you are taking some small modicum of your income and spending it on just things that bring you joy, right? In the present current day. Because we always want to, be planning, around our own context and knowing that things are uncertain, right? So you don't want to live just for the future. But my whole point here is that when you retire, you're probably not, a lot of people are, but you're probably not saving new money towards your investment portfolio. That is probably not goal number 1, like it is when you're working. So do you really need 10 times your salary? Is salary the best goal? Salary, this thing that is so important to us in our working lives, is that the best rudder to kind of steer the ship when we look at our retirement period? I would argue that it is not, because your retirement period could look very different than your working life, right? You could either want to spend way more money, or honestly, maybe you don't need to spend as much money. So how do we determine this personal retirement number? So I would say that a better way to kind of go about thinking about the question of, do I have enough to retire, is start looking at your key planning inputs. So look at your current expenses versus your projected retirement expenses. And you want to look at the stuff that's monthly. You want to look at the stuff that's annual. You want to look at the stuff that's like semi-annual, right? Those insurance bills that you pay once every 6 months. So get out your good old-fashioned spreadsheet and start looking at those expenses. Now, if you are like most Americans, you probably have lots of things that are set up for auto bill on credit cards. And you may not even have a working knowledge of what those monthly expenses are. Print those credit card statements. Print 3 months for each card that you've got. Go through them. Write down what those monthly and annual expenses are. And you might find that you're paying for stuff that you're not using. And then you can, it helps you with the budgeting aspect as well. But look at those current expenses, look at those projected expenses. Good example on the projected expense front, if you plan to pay your house off and age in place and stay there, you may not have a mortgage in retirement. You may, and that's okay. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but you may not have a mortgage in retirement. What you will have is upkeep costs on that property, because if you're aging in place, it could be, the house gets old too. And you may have renovation costs associated with making that house a space that you can age in place. So
Sure.
Adding those convenience factors and really those quality of life factors, handles, chair lifts, those sorts of things. Look at increases like healthcare expenses. You probably are not going to spend on healthcare at 20 what you spend on healthcare at 80. Potential long-term care expenses. You want to make sure that you're baking that into the plan so that you have options then when a long-term care need arises. You do have some potential decreases, commuting, work-related costs. I will give you a caveat here, though, as a financial planner who writes lots of plans for people. Everybody thinks that not commuting and not having lunch when you go to the office every day is going to save you a ton of money. And the reality is that for most people, they are still going out to lunch because lunch still arrives and we still like food. So the decreases, maybe pad those a little less. Planned retirement activities. The thing about retirement, I say this to folks all the time, it just opens up so much dang time for you to do the things that you didn't have time to do when you were working. It's really easy to throw yourself into your work and focus on that and not spend money. It is a lot harder to not spend money when you have all this time to take this trip with your best friend who, asked you to go to Costa Rica, to join the golf club, to do these kind of lifestyle upgrades. And you should do them because you worked hard for them. But we do have to plan for them. And then lastly, on the planning input, you want to look at inflation assumptions and purchasing power erosion. Please, please, please do not assume that the value of the dollar will be totally solid and the same throughout your retirement period. It will not. The amount of groceries that I can buy for $200 at the grocery store in 2026 is radically different from the amount that I could buy in 2019, okay? Or even 2022. Factor that in. Historically, inflation is around 2 to 2.5%. You're going to want to pad that number. I would suggest using maybe 3%. And that can change when it comes to healthcare expenses, okay?
Absolutely.
So once you have figured that out, what you may need in retirement, and you have a rough number, then you get to start doing the fun part, right? Which is looking at the retirement income that you have and backing that out. So Social Security monthly benefits, your FERS pension, if you are under the FERS system, or your CSRS. You want to back those monthly estimates of what your pension is going to be out of your income need. And from that amount, you've got your monthly income need, what you're going to need to lean on the portfolio for. So that's a great way to get started. Again, this is advice for folks who are kind of just starting to engage with this. Again, the best option is going to be to get a comprehensive financial plan from a qualified federal benefits expert financial advisor that is going to show you, all of these different factors, because the level of detail that we can go into as folks who are trained in this and who do this all the time is going to be different, right, than the rough numbers that you can kind of sketch out on your own. But I think that sketching out the rough numbers could be an important step on the road to empowerment around this, right? You're coming in with some sort of context, right?
Absolutely.
So that's sort of what we're looking at on, figuring out what your personal number could look like. There's also a whole separate conversation around the investing piece of, okay, once I know how much money I need to have, how do I know how to, how that money should be invested, how much of that money it's okay to risk, and so on and so forth. But just to kind of get that, to address that question of, how much do I need to retire? There is no universal number that's going to fit every Fed or every person. Or I would say there's no universal number that's going to fit every single married Caucasian septuagenarian, right? Because each one of those people is a different person with different goals, with different things they want to do. I have met folks who are in their 60s who are perfectly happy and living their best lives on $4,000 a month. And that is all they need. And their life is awesome. And then I have met people who who are a little bit more, they want to spend, they want to go, they want to do, they have expensive hobbies, and they want to spend $20,000 a month. And those two people have a radically different retirement target number. And they also have radically different investment strategies and financial plans. So it really is not a one-size-fits-all thing. Your retirement timeline, your income goals, your risk tolerance, all of it is unique to you. Some best practices that I can recommend: annually reviewing your finances to keep track of where your net worth's at and the progress that you're making towards your goals. And then adjusting things when you need to. You need to adjust that TSP contribution. If you haven't done it yet, I'm coming after you. You got to get it done. It increased for 2026. Hit our blog for those
January
specific
jump.
Details. Yeah. Increase your TSP contribution whenever that gets categorized. If you're maxing out, if you're not maxing out, then work to get there. Changing your investment allocations as things shift, right? As life context shifts. And then reassessing your retirement timing. Maybe you're doing an awesome job and you can retire earlier. That's great. Maybe you need to catch up and we may need to be pushing things back, right? But hopefully that's not you if you are implementing all of these tips here. So remember, benchmarks can offer you a general direction. What they cannot offer you is judgment. I am on pace, I am off pace. So for that, I highly, highly recommend, speaking with a qualified federal benefits expert, financial advisor. Reason I say federal benefits expert is because the pension is huge in this.
Sure.
The benefits are huge in this. A Fed's retirement timeline and financial plan looks totally different than a non-Fed. I don't know any, it's rare to find in private industry at large somebody who could retire at 57 and have a lifelong pension. As
Very
a Fed,
true.
You got enough years of service, you might could. Definitely recommend, looking at your numbers, taking stock of that, being aware of those benchmarks. But again, avoid using the salary to define yourself by, because in retirement, it may or may not be relevant.
Very true.
So, yeah.
Very true.
So that is all the time that we have for today, folks.
Yep.
But we're going to be back next week to bring you all the latest updates you need to make informed decisions about your career and financial well-being as a Fed.
And be sure, please, to subscribe to this podcast on YouTube or Spotify. Just hit that button. 2 reasons. 1, you'll always get the latest. 2, you're helping us amplify the signal, so the algorithm will show it to more Feds. We try and make this as valuable as possible. So please do that. And please remember to share it with your friends and colleagues.
And for more information on the topics that we covered in today's show and more, be sure to check out our blog at blog.stwserve.com. Subscribe to our newsletter while you're there, the weekly serving, to get all the latest news for Feds delivered straight to your inbox every single week.
And do not forget our live webinars. Every single month, we've got them up there. We've got a couple of really good ones coming. We always have really good ones. I always say that. So February 4th, we've got the TSP webinar from 11 until 2. I'll be hosting that one. And then on February 10th, we have the ever popular TSP webinar from 11 till 2. I'm hosting that one. And then on February 10th, we have the incredibly popular first webinar, also from 11 till 2, with the ever popular Jennifer Meyer hosting. You don't want to miss that. And if you're looking for a one-on-one conversation, to go deeper outside of a classroom setting, hit us up. That's what we're here for. Reach out to us at meetings@stwserve.com. We will help you any way we can.
All right, folks. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Fed15. I'm Katelyn Murray.
And I'm Dan Sipe.
And we will see you next week.
Next week.